Okay, welcome to a Tuesday stream. We're going to be looking at making templates today, talking about some of the issues with making templates, talking about some best practices, and I'm going to make a template for the live streams that I do in the evenings, which is my Song Night series. Up until now, I've been using primarily a blank session every single time, blank project, and I just build it as I go. And I think I'm getting to the point with that series where I want to make a template for it so I'm not just recreating the same elements each and every time. Of course, today we're still on update watch. We don't know when the update is coming. That would be probably 11.2. I was guessing the last couple weeks it could have come out at any time, and it still hasn't. There was somebody who posted on one of the Facebook groups that said it was coming out yesterday based on a friend of a friend, and it's unlikely that Apple ever releases updates on Memorial Day, which is a holiday here in the United States. It's not a worldwide holiday, but they just don't typically release updates on Memorial Day, as far as I know. So that was kind of a long stretch. And then somebody deleted that off of that page anyway. And so, cool. We're waiting for it. It could be, who knows? It could be this afternoon. It could be tomorrow. It could be in a week. It could be in a month. But we're on the countdown for it. So in the meantime, we're going to be talking about templates and going through some of the issues with templates. I think that this is one of those things that can be a really big time saver, especially if you're doing the same things over and over again. I don't have a ton of personal templates that I use because a lot of times if I'm going into a project and I want to create a new piece of music or something, then I find a template can sometimes be a little bit of a funnel. It makes me do certain things. And so I don't mind starting from scratch. It doesn't take long to set up a project. But with the Song Night series, I feel like I'm doing some of the same things over and over again. And so I think that that's actually a really good example of when we could use a template. So if you're finding yourself making the same type of projects over and over and over again, then a template may be a really good idea. I have, for instance, let me do a new from template, and we're going to say don't close the current project. You'll see my templates on this particular computer. I just have one that I've made for this one. I have had other templates and I have other files that I use as templates, but I have this one. It's called H3VR Prep. I have the Zoom H3VR ambisonic microphone. And I'm always taking those files and having to convert them into other usable formats. And so I have a template for that. And that seems to work really well. We have, and actually let me open that back up for a second. We have, of course, a number of built-in templates. Hip-hop, electronic, songwriter, orchestral, multi-track, music for picture. They all have nice little icons and information about them. And I've read in the manual that you can add this information into the file out in the Finder, but we can talk about that a little later. I actually had some issues with that not working the way that the manual said. So I don't know if that's part of the manual that just got carried over from a previous version and they're not updating the manual, which does happen on a regular basis, or if there's some other issue with it. We could take a look and I'll show you where they said that those things are possible to add them. Okay, so before we jump into this too deeply, I want to talk about one of the more important issues with templates and the difference between the project settings and the overall program settings, because that helps us when we're making our templates. You may find yourself thinking, oh, well, I'm going to change this setting. I'm going to save my template. And then later you open up your template and it doesn't have that setting saved because there's some different factors that we have to consider. Okay, cool. And a good comment from Placidon, who says, have quite a few saved, but sometimes find that I want to do something else, and the template makes it more difficult. That's kind of what I'm talking about. It's there's not always, templates are not always the right answer, just sometimes they are. And it's important to understand that. Let's go into a Logic Pro. Under our settings, this group of settings, this is our application settings. So general, all of our project handling, editing, our audio interface, recording basics, MIDI, the score settings, the movie settings, automation, control surfaces, view, my info, and then the advanced. These are all things that are global settings for Logic. If I change these and then open up a different project, these changes I make stay there regardless of which project I open up. This is where we set up a lot of how we want Logic to work, no matter what. And it's important to know this and where this is and become familiar with where these settings are, because if you, for instance, are wanting overlapping track recordings, for instance, to merge and when cycle is on for MIDI, or to create a take folder, it doesn't matter. If I change this now and then open up a new project, they're going to stay what I left them at. And so none of these settings go into our templates. Our templates don't change any of these. You can't save any of these as template settings. That's cool. It's important to know that. Then, under the File menu, we have our project settings. This is a whole different batch of settings. A lot of them look similar in terms of the organization, but they're all different. So, for instance, under audio, we have sample rate. We don't have our audio interface, but we have sample rate. And our spatial audio, if it's on or off, or the surround format, etc. For recording, some basics for the count-in, MIDI data reduction options. I mean, we just have a bunch of different things here. Smart tempo, what do we do if we have new recordings, imported audio? Those are based project to project, not as a global setting. Some MIDI things, some input filters and chase settings. We'll look at more of these in a second when we actually start setting this up. But all of these are project settings, which means they're project to project. So I can set these up in one project, open up a different project, and these could be different depending on if I set them up differently in the other project. These settings can be saved with our template. And so if there's some things we want to customize, and we'll come back to that in a minute, then that's a great place to do it. As we're thinking about the template, maybe you have like a project that you think, you know what, that project, that would be perfect for my template. Maybe I'll just, open that up and save it and clean it up. Well, there's one other technique I want to talk about for a minute that I think is really useful and could be used as we're starting to create a template. And that is we're going to look in our browser here. This is one area that I hope that we're going to be getting some updates, because this isn't necessarily always a great option. It's been around for a long time without very many updates. But up here, and this is what we're calling our browsers. We have a project browser and an all file browser. Now those two things are referring to the first one, to the project we're in. If we had files and things, it would show up here. And then going to all files takes us to our Finder browser. And so I can come down to music, and let's go into Logic. You'll see it's a little bit of a mess, but that's fine. I need to go through and organize this, but these are some of my Song Night streams. Let's go into one of those projects. And now stretch this over, and you'll see these are all of the elements inside that project. And I could go through and select them all or just one and go through and decide which elements from that track that I want to bring in. This one is actually one of the more important ones, the content. If I'm going to build a template, I want the track and the instrument and the plugins, but I don't want the content because I don't want to bring in content into a template. I want to have no content. I just want it to have all the elements. So I'll leave that deselected, but then I could choose the plugins and the I/O and the bus numbers and automation, all of those other elements. When you're done, you can just say add, and we'll add that track into the project. So I can go through and capitalize on other projects I already have without having to bring in the content. Also, down below, at the very bottom, we have this thing where we can, oh, it's right behind me. So you can't see it. Let me make myself just a teeny bit smaller out of the way. There we go. And so down at the bottom, we have 3 buttons: import, project settings, replace, or add. And we can use those to bring in the different things. The import project settings is useful because if you have, for instance, screen sets in a project that you really like, we could bring them in, or score sets, or score settings, or sync settings, tuning settings, movie settings, transform sets, staff styles, metronome settings, audio settings, assets settings, lane sets, text styles, record settings, and MIDI settings. So we could bring any of these things in from a different project. If you have a project where you know you want some of that information, you can just bring it in by importing it, and rather than having to open it up and or recreate it. Okay, so let's close that down. I'm going to start now, first of all, by saving this. And this becomes a little important. But I'm going to call this the template prep file. That just means I'm saving this as a project. It's not the template at this point, but I can open this up at any time and make changes to it and then make a new template from it. Down below, I am going to make this a package. I know there's people out there who like the folder option, but I do all of mine as packages. I prefer that. You can still get into the packages. They're not like locked down or anything. They're just a folder with an icon. But that's a nice way to keep things organized. And then of all the rest of this, copy the following files into your project. I just have the audio files checked and nothing else. Otherwise, those files can get really big and unnecessarily. But I do like the audio files to get brought into the project, which is nice. Okay. Now I'm going to start building out some of the things that I normally would put in my project for my streams. I am going to actually do the arrangement because this is something I'm often doing on song nights. And, I don't need to do that. Let's see. Let's do the verse. I'm going to kind of do this, the long version of the verse, meaning I'm going to just make everything probably as long as I normally would go. I can always delete some of this stuff, if that makes sense. We're not like locked into this, of course. Option click drag is our friend. I don't think I'll need like a bigger chorus than that ever. Let's see. There we go. Oh, click off of there. And then the ever so elusive bridge. Should we even put a bridge in this? I don't know. That's a joke. Just like that. One of each for now. We're not going to put an outro most of the time. If I need an outro, we can just add something at the end, but we don't need an outro at that point. Let's see. Placidon says, saw something in Cubase demo that was really cool. Small thing, but very useful. The metronome shows up as a MIDI track in the bottom right corner. You can place X where you want for the time signature. Oh, That's cool. So we do have some nice MIDI functionality accents. I see. I was like, I don't think that made sense to me, but now it does. We do have some nice MIDI functionality with our metronome and Logic, but it is a little bit prehistoric, meaning it's one of those features that's been around since the beginning, or at least a very long time. And so I don't think necessarily we have like as much functionality there as we could. Okay, so I've got the arrangement up. Of course, if we are building a song, we're going to be copying and pasting those, but I don't build one verse and then want to have to delete the marker later and then copy and paste. I just want to start with one each. And then once I actually use the template, I'll be putting in the verse amount and then duplicating it and moving it around. Okay, so there's that. Let's see. Let's actually put some of our instruments in that we're going to be using. I do want to put in a drummer, and we will put in just one of the patterns we can change. That's super easy to do. And so we'll just do, let's see, the brush for now. Again, it is going to put all those elements in based off of the markers we have. But this is super easy to come through and change the performer and the patterns. But this just puts out there so I don't have to worry about it at all. We'll put that up at the top. I wouldn't mind if we could customize. We can change the color of regions and things, but I don't know if in a template I'm going to do that, just because I think it's fine to leave it as the default. I do, on projects that I'm working on, often colorize the regions and things, but that's usually after I need to, if it gets to a point where it's unwieldy and I want to organize it differently, then I might do that. Okay, so let's add a few different instruments. I'm always using the vintage electric piano. And I turn it up and turn down the bass boost a little bit. We don't need that. And see, then I don't have to label tracks or do anything because this will all be done now in our template. I'm going to click on the icon here, and we're actually going to give it icons. I'm always torn between these ones that are more photorealistic and the icon-based ones, but the icon-based ones are going to win out. That's the plan. Okay, so let's see. Up until now, I'm still using MIDI. I'm playing in the MIDI. I'm not using the chord track as much, but so I'm not going to put any chords in at this point. I just don't think that I need to put chords in order to just have to change them all. That's fine. We could put in chord regions, and maybe I'm not sure. I'm thinking about it. Other instruments that I want. I almost always use the retro synth in some form or another. So we'll put a retro synth in. And let's change its icon as well. Doesn't really matter which one of these. So we'll do that one. And let's do We're going to do one non-logic instrument. Let's save real quick before I load. Okay, we're going to do the reason rack, which I do use all the time. There's a new version. I'll have to download that at some point. But browse. I'll just load up 777 now. Okay, cool. And let's call that 777. And by the way, let me see. Let's open up the reason rack for a second. Devices. I'm going to do Command-Shift-4 and drag this down. There we go. Let's close that. Because one thing I can do that's kind of cool, we're going to do a custom icon. And I'm just going to drag this from the desktop onto there and put that there. So now you'll see it has the reason rack as the icon. Let's see if this is, you can see it a little bit there. But that just tells me again that it's the rack. So I just made a custom icon for that. And now I don't have to use one of the logic ones that may not match what that is. I could make it a little bit, I could resize it or make it a little bit easier to see, but I'll know what that is. So that's more for me than for you, but okay. Maybe I'll just really quickly also, sometimes I do like to have a piano. And so let's do just one of the studio pianos. I'll do this one in studio grand mode. I'm going to turn off some of the pedal noise just a little bit. I feel like there's too much of it, generally speaking. And then I do give it the full name, studio piano, just because I want to, without having to think about it, know which one I'm grabbing. But it's like a grand piano, so there we have it. Let's move this up. I'm not going to, well, let's see. Well, let's put a bass in here too. Just so that I can grab it. And we'll get to this in a second, when this project loads, nothing will be activated. It'll all be deactivated, which is nice. Because it means it won't load it up until we actually need something. Let's see. Cool. But I'm also loading up the instrument and not a full channel strip, which means I don't get quite all of the nasty plug-in chains. Okay, this will be the last one for now that I add. Okay, those are the stuff. Let's go into the settings for a few minutes. So we're just doing project settings because these are the only things that get saved with the projects. Let's see if there was a couple that I usually want to make sure are checked. For instance, this one right on the front page here, only load plugins needed for project playback. That's the one that I was just talking about. So that one is selected. Audio, I don't need to worry about any of these things. They are already set correct. I do a sample rate of 48K no matter what. I am going to say automatically colorize takes. I do like that. I don't always have that on, but that's partly because I create a new project and don't have a template ready to go. Yeah, MIDI data reduction is fine. I am going to set new recordings to on and set imported ones. That's one thing I really like. And we'll have it trim the start of new regions as well. So things that we don't need. I don't need any of the other things here. MIDI, I don't think we are going to change too much here, except I do want it to chase notes. So this is if you start the playback in a project and there's a MIDI note that you're in the middle of, it will actually catch up and play that note even if it's in the middle and then continue on. If that is turned off, then it won't play it and it'll just wait till the next note starts. Cool. It can be funky sometimes if you have other control data that happened before the playhead start point, but it's typically better. I like it to have it on than anything. Cycle jump, I don't need any of those on. I think we're okay. Score, I'm not going to mess with at all. Although there are some cool things in there, but we don't need to worry about it. Movie, I'm not going to worry about. Synchronization, I'm not going to worry about because I'm not syncing any other things. If I had a setup here with external gear that was receiving MIDI clock, then I would set that up as well. But we're not. Metronome here is one of those points that we have this where you can see we have the audio click that's internal. That's the Klopfgeist plugin, which is a plugin. It is actually a track inside Logic. I'll show you that in a second. Or we can set this up to send out as MIDI data. So if we have an external device we want to use as a clock, we can actually do that here. And we have the bar in terms of how much velocity we want on each downbeat of the bar, on each group or each beat or even each subdivision. So there are some things there with that. Tuning, we could set equal tempered all the way down to our other tuning. I'm going to leave this as just equal tempered for now. It only really applies to internal Logic instruments anyway. I don't know, maybe I'll leave that. I mean, it's something that I find myself not using as much because I don't just have it on by default. But this changes how pianos sound, and that's not always the best part of it. We'll leave it off for now. And then our project settings, we don't need to worry about those. We're not going to copy everything in. So those are all the settings that I would be using. Just so you can see what I was talking about with the Klopfgeist. Maybe you already know this. I'm assuming some of you do. But if we come down into our mixer and say all, then this adds the other stuff to this. And here is our actual click with our, this is what the metronome is. So if you turn on the metronome, this is what's playing. And you can actually change some of this, or you could load up a different instrument. You could actually load up a drum synth or ultrabeat or whatever, and you could actually use that. And so it's a full instrument built onto our click right here. It's solo safed, which means if you solo something else, it doesn't get muted, but it's just a track. Cool. That means if you want to change the click for your template, then this is the way to do it. So if you're like, ooh, I hate that, then let's come down here and you could be like, ooh, let's do That's loud and obnoxious. That's what we're going to save ours as. Cool. What else do we want to do here? That's a great question. I don't know. I don't want to use a mastering assistant on this template because it will add a lot of latency, but I do want to add just a little limiter on the output just to give me like 1 decibel output protection. We don't. So this is one of those things where, do we need to do this? No, but if I'm doing my song nights with this template on YouTube streaming, then it might be nice not to just like blast out the outputs. Awesome. And Plastodon, oof, I've set the ad numbers to only play in a very moderate way. So you must have like some really good luck there. Maybe everybody's getting all of them. We don't have enough viewers. We don't have enough viewers to really justify having 4 ads. It's not like I'm going to get any money from that. Next stream I do, I'll make sure that that I do the minimal most amount, which is I think I can turn it down 1 more notch. I'll just do that because, like I said, when we do these streams aren't for the masses, and so it's not about the money in this case. Don't get me wrong, every ad helps, but that's not the point. So I'll try to turn those down in future streams if I can remember. Yeah, break space is getting less. It's every time you watch an ad, I do get like a teeny fraction, like 1,000th of a penny. But these streams, they're not about the money. That's for sure. Okay. This is the bulk of what we wanted to do. Let's set up a reverb. We'll go back to our tracks. And this has a reverb, but I don't like it. I don't like the reverbs that just automatically come. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit. And we will do a reverb for these. I don't know why. I always use bus 5. Not always, but I use 5 a lot. And then on this, let's name this reverb. And we will add, of course, my favorite reverb in Logic, which is the QRS. Just on the default even for now. Every song will be a little different. The default's pretty good. Let me move over my stuff a little bit and I'll actually go through and adjust some levels on this. Let's see. Cool. Studio bass, we don't need any reverb on. Matter of fact, I'll delete the reverb send. Piano. Not bad. Vintage keys, maybe a little bit less than that. We'll see. Or maybe a little bit more. that's fine. Maybe a little tad much, but I'm okay with that for the moment. I'm going to be using that for a bass most of the time. Let's actually turn the level of it down just a hair too. Okay, cool. And then the 777. Just a hair. It already has its own effects, but just going to blend it in just a teeny bit. Okay. And then the QRS has some basic controls, but I'm just going to put an EQ on right afterwards just so that I can have it there. Because I will eventually, or at some level, want to EQ the reverb just a teeny bit. Okay, so we've got all of that done. Set of instruments, nothing fancy. Oh, maybe, you know what? I always find myself with the drums, not EQing, like leveling them out compression-wise. I don't know if I need, this thing. Fine. But the compressor, let's check it out. Now, this is tricky because if I load up a different drummer, I don't want to do too much work on that. If I load up a different drummer, unless I'm careful, it's going to delete anything that's on that channel strip. Now, last time I checked, and this could be different, but last time I checked, patch merging, which is this thing down in the bottom corner, enable patch merging, means that I can have, when I change things from the library, that I can tell it what to change and what not to change. And so if I'm going to be changing the drummer around, I would turn off audio effects if I wanted to keep that same chain there, or if I didn't care about the chain, then I leave it on. But I always turn the sends off. I don't want the sends to be doing anything. Now, I wish that there was some sort of ability to key command that into place, but there's not, as far as I can tell, last time I checked. And so that's just something we have to really enable each time. I need to change my zoom settings. They're not zooming up that much. Cool. So we're good with all of that. We have, I don't think there's anything else we really need here. Trying to think if there's other settings. I think that we're at a decent place to talk about the next step, which is how we actually make the template and then how we update the template, right? So those are a couple steps we'll do right now. Let's see. I want to do that. Close the library. These things actually do matter, how much we have things zoomed in and whatnot, because that will, whatever you save into the project will be saved into the template. And there's a process to this, meaning once I make the template, I'll try it out. I'll find things that I'm like, oh, shoot, I really forgot to make that setting, or I wish I had this, and then you just make a note of it and then add them in and then recreate it. Simply put, we're going to do Save as Template from the File menu. And we're going to call this the Song Night. I guess that's it. We're going to hit Save. Just like that. Now, when I come up to make a new from template, let's not close. Go to My Templates, and you'll see Song Night right here. Cool. The details just say Song Night. That's the name of the file, just like this one says H3VR Prep is the name of the file. Let's go out to the actual folder where this is for a moment. I'm going to find it real quick there. It's under Audio Music Apps in your music folder under Project Templates. I'm going to Command I that for a second. And so the menu, or the manual, I should say, was saying if you added comments here that it would show up, but I haven't got it to work. Maybe it's working today, but the Song Night live streams. So let's close that. But I don't even know if maybe I'd have to reload, but it's not showing up. So I think that there's something broken with that little piece of information. And so I'm not going to worry about it right now. But you're supposed to be able to add some details and a different icon, and neither one of those things has worked so far. Cool. If we choose that, I'm going to say don't close. I'm just going to leave this one. It loads all that stuff up, but it doesn't load up the template itself. It just loads up everything in the template as a project. In this case, Untitled 18, which we can then save. And it's on the other screen, but we'll call this Song Night Example. Whoa, that's weird. Okay, let's go actually into Logic and say save. There we go. I was saving something else. We'll call this Delete Me, even though I'm sure in 10 years I'll be like, why was I supposed to delete that? And now that project is there. So the process then becomes, once you start doing this, say like, you know what, that's great, but man, I really wish my template had this thing, or I wish it really had this thing, or, whatever you want. You would just open up the template like this. Maybe we want to make sure the metronome is turned on. I mean, it could be something silly like that. I have it turned off. Or maybe I want the count off, the count in turned off. Then I make those changes, and then I say save as template, and I just save it as the same name. I say replace, and then I've updated it. You don't want to do that after you've already used the project for a long amount of time, because if you record in MIDI and audio and then you save it as a template, then the audio and MIDI are going to be a part of that template from then on. At the same time, if you want to record some audio or MIDI and put it into your template, then you can. And we can hold that information as well. So a lot of different options with this. There's really no right or wrong answer. It just depends on what you want from it. And as you build this, then you'll be able to decide which things to add, subtract, and manipulate. Okay, cool. There's a few of you watching. If you have any questions, this is the only time you get to ask them. I'm going to really quickly just pop onto the internet and see if any new updates came out for Logic, which is not the case. Nothing has come out. Not too surprised. But if it does come out, it sometimes comes out in like 20 minutes. So you just never know. Awesome. Okay. That's it for the stream. I just wanted to go over this template making process. Check out my next song night to see it in action for the very first time, and I'll be making some notes on what I want to change to it, because I guarantee that I'm going to find some things that I'm like, ooh, you know what? Why didn't I do this, or why didn't I do that, or why didn't, it's like I'm going to be making changes. And so it's a process. And as I do the song nights, each time I'll be adding or changing or updating, tweaking until I get this exactly how I want it. And Placidon's asking which day, and to that I say, I have no idea. I'm really in spin mode until the update comes out. I'm working on a few projects which I can't stream because there's, somebody's project. But in the next, sometime this week, I'll be doing a song night for sure. And we'll figure that out. And we will probably still not get to the bridge at any point. And JD says Logic Pro Update Countdown Part 7. That's how I feel about this. I mean, I get so hostile towards Apple for not talking to anybody about this and keeping it all secret and hush-hush for no reason. But they've got other things on their minds over there. It sounds like they might be, getting tariffed because they aren't willing to build their iPhones in the United States. And, it's like, oh, I wish that Logic wasn't owned by Apple. At the same time, being owned by Apple has given us some things that no other company has. And so I think that it's a mixed bag. And I'm just grateful that it still exists and is still being updated at all. And yay for that. So anyway, that's it for the stream. Thanks for watching, everybody. We just had like a big influx of people jump on. Not a big, a small influx of people jump on. And you're too late, but go back to the beginning and watch it. There's hopefully some good information about making templates and looking at a template process. But if you already have your templates, then yay for you. But I'll catch you all later. See ya.